Thomas Harris' Hannibal Lecter series follows the brilliant yet monstrous Dr. Hannibal Lecter, Hannibal the Cannibal. And much like with the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, aka the Millennium Trilogy that I've spoken about on this channel, this is going to be a long one because, like with the previous trilogy, this one has a lot that we could talk about, and it falls into this disturbing genre as well. But it's equally as iconic as it is disturbing. It's it raises questions of morality and immorality. It's such a but what makes this trilogy pop? What is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the name Hannibal Lecter? Welcome to Check That Book, a special place on the internet where we get acquainted with arguably the most disturbing books ever written. Yes, I'm all with the disturbing literature. But yeah, sometimes we take a look at book versus movie, which I was really tempted to do with this one immediately. Just let's not talk much about the books, let's just dive into book versus movie. We'll cover the book anyway. But no, that's not how I roll. I would like to take a look at them separately. I'm no book critic, nor am I a film critic. I'm just a sincere admirer of the genre, and I'm hoping to break these pieces of work down for you in a relatively safe manner, I hope. In a fun way, I also hope, because some of these works are really worth your time. Because, yeah, sure, they are disturbing, but some of them raise truly important questions and introduce you to a new way of critical thinking, maybe. Some of these works challenge you to take a look at a certain situation from another kind of angle. And whilst most of you know this Hannibal Lecter story, perhaps by the infamous Silence of the Lambs movie, and well, for all of you book lovers, the book, obviously. After seeing the film, a lot of people who are into the genre went to the bookstores or to their local libraries to get their hands on The Silence of the Lambs. But not many people, to my surprise, know that actually this wasn't the first work, not just by Thomas Harris, but not the first work about the titular Hannibal Lecter character. Well-to-do. In 1981, the world sees Red Dragon. An FBI profiler, Will Graham, is pulled out of his retirement to help and catch a brutal serial killer. Sounds like an amazing detective mystery story, am I right? Well, it kind of is, and it kind of isn't. We have the serial killer, nicknamed Tooth Fairy. I'll let you figure this one out on your own. I recommend reading, but before we continue, I recommend reading all 3 books because they're amazing. Maybe I'll get to it later. I'll rank them by the end of the video, because yeah, some might feel a bit weaker than the others, but that's where the film adaptations come into play. But we won't talk about the film adaptations today because there's a lot to talk about, otherwise this video is going to be several hours long. I'm not sure you want to hear me babble for such a long time. Graham sees insight from the incarcerated Dr. Hannibal Lecter, whom he already captured previously. And that's where shit hits the fan. We get acquainted with Dr. Lecter and his questionable but effective methods. So Dr. Lecter naturally manipulates the situation, leading to deadly consequences. I'm trying not to spoil too much because I am equally as passionate about this trilogy as I am with the Millennium trilogy, and they're kind of similar. They both have a detective story route in them. So yeah, but I really want you guys to read this if you haven't. I strongly recommend these books to pretty much anyone. If the disturbing is your thing, if horror as a subgenre is your thing, because horror and um, suspense is kind of a motif there, but horror on a psychological level, like it's more of a thriller than it is horror. Honestly, it's not like, for example, The Exorcist, which we've talked about before on this channel, by the way. Yeah, that's downright horror. That's a horror novel, and the adaptation is also classified as horror movie. But this one, no, it's deeper than that. If you like the disturbing, or if you like just detective stories, if you like psychological themes or profiling, this is so interesting. Harris does a great job with his descriptions and with his character arc developments. The Red Dragon focuses a lot on law enforcement, how the system works, the themes of, again, obsession and manipulation, and a lot of psychological profiling, which is very captivating to read. For me, personally, when I was a psychology student back in the day, that was a must read because it turns your knowledge into this weird direction of, hey, what if we look at it from another perspective? Because we should, especially if you're a professional therapist, you need to be able to look through the eyes or the mind of a disturbed person sometimes. And what if that disturbed person is actually very composed, as a great self-control, perfect manners, and in overall seems like a very pleasant gentleman to be around with. Yes, I am talking about Dr. Lecter. He is cheeky at times. Um, he is innately sadistic somewhere down there, but he doesn't show it off. And his composure is the thing that makes him so threatening. In 1988, we finally get the perhaps most famous of the trilogy, The Silence of the Lambs, hits the bookshelves, and oh boy, sure, it was a great. I wouldn't dare say magnum opus for the author, but it was a breakthrough, honestly, in the world of literature. But even more so after the premiere of the film. Yes, the book sales rise, and that's a good thing. That's not bad. I so desperately want to talk about the film and Sir Anthony Hopkins' acting there, because yes, I used to study acting a wee bit back in the day, and this film is a must-see for any cinematography students out there, honestly. Even if you don't like the genre, it's a must-see film. Much like the book is a must-read book. Now, The Silence of the Lambs. We get a young FBI trainee, Clarice Starling, who is struggling in her own ways. Her character arc is interesting, especially for young females out there who end up doing what's considered to be a man's job. Truly, this is a male-dominated field where suddenly you get a young and ambitious female striving to be a professional in the area that, again, is dominated by men. Which is, I mean, that's how things are. I'm not saying it's bad or good, it's just how things are. And good for her if she has such passion and talent for this specific field of work she's trying to do. And oh boy, does this story hit hard. Perhaps again for the readers back in the day, and for movie viewers, for female viewers specifically, that was a strong and empowering character, Clarice Starling. But I dare say, and you can throw a brick at me, that it doesn't matter whether you're a boy or a girl. I mean, this Clarice's character, it can be anyone in her shoes struggling to push through the system and to prove yourself worthy of a certain title, prove yourself worthy to get the job done and to be given the job, right? So yeah, but I understand where this female view angle comes in, and I get it. I too was empowered when I first read the book and seen the film. Clarice is sent by her mentor slash boss to interrogate Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who is still incarcerated, by the way. Uh, read the first book, read The Red Dragon before. Yes, read them, and yeah. She's sent to kind of get a consultation, I would say, yeah, on a profile of a serial killer that's bothering us in this book, Buffalo Bill, who skins his women, female victims, I mean. Skins his women, that sounds horrible. But yes, and why does he do that? Buffalo Bill is a separate character that deserves a whole a whole video for himself, I believe, because he's, again, very interesting view into the world and the mind of a truly psychologically disturbed person turned serial killer. And wow, I remember back in the day in Oxford, I really wanted to study criminal psychology, but sometimes reading books such as these and introducing stories such as these, Millennium and, well, Hannibal, it makes me regret that I didn't go through with this and didn't get my degree in criminal psychology, because I would have loved to be in Clarice's shoes. And that sounds horrible, I think. But if you are as passionate about these things as I am, then you might even understand. Because this is so interesting. And again, it puts you to the test as a profiler, as a psychiatrist, as someone who has to deal with this. In order to get important information, you need to be able to play the same game as your opponent does, as the person who you're interviewing. And this is frightening sometimes, but very interesting. Lecter provides rather cryptic clues to Clarice, and the infamous quid pro quo sequence, if you know, you know. Wow, this is such an interesting read. Disturbing is somewhere there on the surface. I mean, yeah, sure, the Buffalo Bill is disturbing, and what he does to his victims, and I mean, mass killings and specific targeting of specific people, all of that. Yeah, sure, it's all frightening and disturbing, but we're here for the psychological aspect of it. And oh boy, this borderline, this teeters on this verge of being kind of like a romance. Even it kind of takes that direction, but not straightforwardly. It is amazing. There are moments here and there in the book where you go, oh boy. My female viewers, I have a question. Have you ever fantasized about darker characters? Oh, we all have at certain point, right? No, seriously, this, how can you not be kind of into that guy? And Hannibal Lecter here is a perfect example of being he is a gentleman, right? But under the surface, he's a monster. And to you personally, like to Clarice, he's never a monster. He's a monster to other people. And you can't help but notice that his actions, his violent actions, are only turned on to those who do him wrong somehow. Does this justify what he does? Well, normally no, but you as a reader get so immersed, and plus, if you're a female reader, you might get attracted to Hannibal the Cannibal. So, and even if you're a male reader, I don't know, I don't care. If you are taken in by Dr. Lecter, you can't help but feel like, yeah, most of his actions are justified. And that is where the author nails you. That is where he can close the gate on you. Now you are imprisoned. You are there with Dr. Lecter in that cell. You are incarcerated because you were led to believe that the violent actions of our main antagonist actually are justified. They're justifiable. You kind of feel for him. Is it morally wrong? A big question mark here. I cannot really answer that, honestly. Does that make me a psychopath? No, it just makes me genuinely curious as to where this is going and what did the author, at the end of the day, want to say to us. Our mind games with Clarice continue years later in 1999's Hannibal. Just Hannibal. That is also a very interesting case of continuance when it comes to the previous Silence of the Lambs. This takes place years later after what happened in the Silence of the Lambs, and we still have Clarice Starling as one of our main characters, and Dr. Lecter, who is now living in Italy under a false identity. There is this plot with Mason Verger, one of Lecter's former victims, who seeks revenge after what Dr. Lecter did to him. I really... Okay, spoiler alert. Yeah, he kind of made Mason peel off his own face and feed it to the dogs. If that doesn't sound disturbing, well, I don't know what does. After all, Mason was not a very good person to begin with, so you don't really feel sorry for him, especially like I mentioned when in the previous book you kind of wanted Dr. Lecter to escape. You kind of wanted him to break free, and he does. But how? Not gonna speak about that. It's gonna be just a major spoiler. Plus, it's just an interesting read. It's like a page-turn screamer, kind of like with Junji Ito, you know, page-turn screamer. Here, you turn the page and you are hungry to read the next paragraph. That's how I would describe the Hannibal series by Thomas Harris. You are hungry for the next page. The novel Hannibal takes dark and unexpectedly romantic kind of turn when it comes to Lecter and Clarice's relationship because, I'm sorry, I'm just so excited to talk about this because, again, Hannibal series, all of the 4 books, yes, all of the 4 ones, have a special place in my heart. They hold a dear spot there, and I'm passionate to talk about them. I'll try to make this video as short as possible though, but otherwise I'm just going to be babbling about it, which in a manner that is more suitable for a live stream, but we'll get to it eventually, I promise. 200 subscribers and there will be a live stream. I'm petrified. So Hannibal Rising in 2006 hits the bookshelves and does not get as much love as it actually deserves. My assumption, though, why Hannibal Rising didn't get as much praise is because we don't usually take well to prequels, and Hannibal Rising happens to be a prequel. It's currently, to my knowledge, the last book about Hannibal the Cannibal. But yeah, I mean, I want to call him Hannibal the Cannibal so that you know who am I talking about, but at the same time, I want to sit up straight and call him Dr. Lecter because he is a brilliant psychiatrist. No doubt, he can read you like a children's tale, easy. You know, the closest character I would compare to Dr. Lecter would be actually Sherlock Holmes. And Sherlock Holmes happens to be my favorite character in fiction of all time. Hannibal Rising explores Dr. Lecter's origins and his very traumatic and disturbing childhood. And if you think well, obviously, if he grows up to be as fucked up as he is, well, it must have been in the family, right? He must have been mistreated. Well, no, that's absolutely not the case. It's actually heartbreaking. I recommend you read Hannibal Rising to understand the, well, perhaps the reasons. Yes, the reasoning behind Lecter's further actions and his own psychological troubles and disorders. This is actually a very, this is the correct order. You start off with the Red Dragon, then the Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and you finish it off. Take a big pause there and finish it off with Hannibal Rising so that you can get shit revealed to you, you know? Because it's exciting to read the first three books without even understanding why and how did Dr. Lecter turn out the way he did. Where does he get his superpowers from? How did he acquire his self-control, his amazing stance? You know, how did he do this? What drove him to be this person? Well, it's actually more intriguing if you know less. Which is again why many people were disappointed when Hannibal Rising came out. Hannibal Rising explains to us the cannibalistic descent to madness. I mean, there is a method to his madness, don't get me wrong, but still madness nonetheless, and his violent and extremely calculated actions. You get to see the development of his intelligence, and that is, I believe, very fascinating. I don't see why this book gets so much hate. Yes, I understand, like I mentioned, we don't take well to prequels, and we often don't prefer iconic characters to be dissected like this. But in the case of Hannibal, besides so many years later, why not? I bet many people were actually genuinely curious. What was the reason behind all of this? Why are these books disturbing? Well, first and foremost, like I mentioned, Hannibal, the cannibalism. Yes, it's kind of like an underlying theme here and there in all of the four books, specifically in the fourth, where we get the explanation and the backstory of how did Hannibal Lecter first taste human flesh and why. And that's disturbing and sad. So I didn't see it. I don't think the prequel story is that big of a deal in a negative light, that is. I don't understand the hatred it gets. I kind of get it, but also I think it's blown out of the proportion. Just give it a try. And if you didn't like it, give the movie a try. Gaspar Ulliel was a brilliant young actor who I think did a good job, but we'll talk about it later when we actually do a book versus movie on the subject of Hannibal Lecter.
You must overcome these delusions that are disguising your reality. What kind of savage delusions does this killer have?
The series is a mixture of psychological horror, crime, thriller elements, and the disturbing moments such as, violent killings and cannibalism. It's a masterpiece in its niche where it belongs, and stepping even a bit out of it because it deserves to be out there, even if you are not a fan of the genre. So in overall, Hannibal Lecter, to me personally, and I believe a lot of people might share this view, Hannibal Lecter is one of the few most chilling, fascinating, and iconic villains slash heroes. I mean, not heroes, but yeah, he's never a direct antagonist, but okay, let's say characters. Iconic characters in modern literature he is. And, well, cinematography as well, but again, I'm preparing another video about this one, so stay tuned. Meanwhile, I would like to thank you guys so much for watching this. If you like disturbing content, consider giving this video a boost in the form of an erect thumb, and make sure to subscribe for more. I'm trying to keep you entertained as well as informed, hopefully, so yes. This was one of my favorite book series of all time about Hannibal Lecter, the brilliant psychiatrist whom I believe we need to study, at least at some point in our lives. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Thank you once again, and I shall see you as soon as possible. Goodbye.